Hey guys, welcome back. So, I am the person who runs Don't Be a Rabbit, and today I'm going to be discussing why the Ravens are not a team. They are just a literal cult, I fear. And I'm going to be discussing the exact reasons why that is. Now, I know a lot of people haha, laugh funny, joke about the Ravens being a cult. The thing is, they quite literally are a cult. So I think we should start telling it like it is and start calling them a cult. Now, here are the reasons why I truly 1,000,000% believe that the Ravens are a cult rather than just a team with a few quirks. So let me just preface everything with the cult characteristics that I used for my research are from masterclass.com. Now, I know this isn't I don't know how reputable of a source, but I do know that these are very common characteristics of a cult. So even just as blank knowledge, I knew these were common characteristics of the cult, and I just wanted a formal way of saying it, so I went to a website that had it. Okay? So let's just jump right in. Let's start with the first characteristic being authoritarian control. According to masterclass.com, this is, quote, cultism hinges on encouraging maximum dependency. People in the cult must feel incapable of living an individual life outside of the norms of the group. Now, even just the beginning, saying cultism hinges on encouraging maximum dependency, that is so Raven, to a T, that is the Ravens. Because let's say all Ravens have the same major. Every single Raven has to have a business major, or there is an or. If they want another major, they have to convince another Raven to take on that same major, and they have to convince their coach, Tetsuji, that they should be able to take classes for this major. And this is because the Ravens are very dependent on a buddy system, and there are, I believe, at least 3 Ravens in every single one of their classes due to this buddy system. And even Kevin and Jean, they escaped the Ravens. They are no longer Ravens. And yet we still see them utilizing a buddy system. You see Kevin with Andrew, they are always by each other's side. One does not go somewhere without the other. And then you have Jean, who needs the buddy system when he leaves the Ravens, and he and Jeremy become dependent on one another, but mostly Jean becomes dependent on Jeremy because he needs that dependence. Now, we can also see this in the Sunshine Court when Ravens are told to leave their training facility, and they're literally just told, go home for a little bit, we need to investigate some stuff, go home for a little bit. They literally start killing themselves due to this codependency that they have on this buddy system, and just relying on having other Ravens with them. So obviously there are a lot of examples of authoritarian control and this sense of maximum dependency within the Ravens. Now, next characteristic is extremist beliefs. Now, extremist beliefs are in cults, quote, cult members hold to very dogmatic and extreme beliefs, and they also cannot question these beliefs without fear of retaliation from the leader or from other members. Now, specifically, I would like to hone in on they cannot question these beliefs without fear of retaliation from the leader or other members. So the Ravens, they train hard. They train, and that's all they do. And so the Ravens, if they mess up, they are often just abused because of it. In the Sunshine Court, we see Jean mess up, and he immediately goes to his coach, hands over his racket, and basically tells the coach to hit him because he deserves it. And that is the belief that the Ravens have, where if they mess up, they deserve to be punished. And in terms of beliefs, they're also always told that, by they, I mean the Ravens, the Ravens are also always told that they'll make a national XC team if they take this abuse. Because of that, there's like a lot of backstabbing because of this promise that they are going to reach these like great levels of XC playing. There's a lot of backstabbing that happens in the Ravens, and this also happens due to the buddy system, because the success of one person relies on the success of another. So there's a lot of backstabbing that may happen here. And then we can also see this fear of like retaliation, and we see this retaliation actually happen in the Sunshine Court, where when Jean leaves the Ravens, he has to like request that his schoolwork gets sent from Baltimore, Maryland to South Carolina. And when his work is sent over, he finds out that all of his notes are crossed out, and all of the notes are actually covered with little letters from his old teammates. Letters, I say loosely. And it's basically all of them just calling him a slut, a traitor, things worse than that and similar to that. They also crossed out the backs of like all of the postcards Kevin wrote to him over the years, and they destroyed his stuff because he was a traitor for leaving. So this fear of retaliation is very real, and it comes from both the leader and the members, which is another reason why the Ravens are a cult. Now, another big one in terms of cultism is going to be isolation from society. And that is pretty self-explanatory, but isolation is utilized to like create this like hive mindset, and basically to give the leader of the cult the utmost control over the thoughts and feelings of the members. And we see this in the Ravens because they have 16-hour training days. And that because of this like pair-based buddy system they have going on, they're never alone. They never like, by never alone, I mean they are alone because they're so separate from society. They're like only allowed to communicate with other Ravens. That's why there's a buddy system, because they're only allowed to truly communicate with other Ravens. And they also have to live on campus, like they're forced to. Like, take where I go to school, a lot of people live in like apartments off campus. Take like at the USC, Jeremy's friends Kat and Lila, they live off campus. They live in a little apartment together. Like, it is very common for college students to live off campus, but the Ravens are not allowed to live off campus. They are not allowed to. They actually don't even live on campus. They aren't in the regular like sports, like athletic hall, that's the word. They aren't in the athletic hall dorms, which exist in this series. They are actually set up to live under their training facility. They live under the court. That's crazy. They don't see anyone. They live under the court. They train for 16 hours a day. Plus, they never go home for breaks. Like, never. They never leave. They never leave except to go to away games. That is the only time they leave. It's basically train, go to class, go to away games, train, go to class, go to away games, train. They don't go home. They barely get sleep. They don't go home. It's very unhealthy living conditions because of that. But yeah, this is very clear isolation from family because they're not allowed to go home, but it's also isolation from the prospect of meeting any new people. Lastly, we have veneration of a single individual, which is also known as having a charismatic leader. Tetsuji promises glory to people, so they will accept their abuse. Personally, I think that you would have to be a pretty convincing guy to convince loads of people to just accept that they are wrong, they are in the wrong, they deserve abuse because they did something wrong. Like, you have to be pretty convincing to convince someone of that, I would think. And also, all of the Ravens, well, not all of the Ravens, at the very least, we know Rico, Kevin, and Jean. They all call Tetsuji, their coach, Master. They call him Master. I don't know, like, how else to convince you that that is the work of, like, a charismatic leader. But he's literally called Master. So. And then also, everyone knows that the Ravens are, like, super weird and really intense and really off-putting. But yet they still join. They still join. And it's interesting because they're not even the team, or cult in this case, they're not the team who puts the most people onto the US court. So the Ravens are not the team that puts the most people into professional XC. That's actually the USC Trojans. And the reason why the Ravens have a hard time going pro is because they're so used to this buddy system. They're so set in their ways, you cannot take them out of it very easily. And a lot of coaches don't have time to completely retrain a person. There's a reason you're hired. They don't want to retrain you. But they do not work well with other people. They do not, for lack of better wording, they do not play nice with other people. And this makes them extremely hard to work with. And so, statistically, looking at USC Trojans versus the Edgar Allan Ravens, you see that the USC Trojans, who are considered very agreeable, they're very nice, they are very good players, they send more people to the professional XC leagues than the Ravens do because they're completely disagreeable. And so, why do so many people still flock to the Ravens? Is it because Kevin Day and Rico Moriyama were created there and they're these big names in XC? Maybe. Maybe it's because Tetsuji knows exactly what to say, though. Maybe it's both. Anyways, this has been a deep dive into why exactly I think the Ravens are a cult and not a team. They are not a team, they are a cult. And I think we, as the fandom, should start saying it like it is. They are a cult. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. And please check out what is to come soon.